Welcome back. It's time for Business Matters with Don Ma. Don, good to see you. What's happening?
Good to see you guys as well. So let me start off with an update on the chip industry. So what's happening here is Semiconductors getting a big cash influx. The Biden administration announced today $825 million in funding. It's for a new research and development facility in Albany, New York. And the goal here is to boost high-tech manufacturing, plus reduce reliance on foreign technology. The facility will be expected to drive innovation in the field, and Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo called the facility launch a key milestone. The announcement follows new Biden administration rules on tech investments, and these rules limit U.S. investments in artificial intelligence and other sensitive tech in China. Next, Google reportedly owes Russia more than 2 undecillion rubles. And that translates to about $20 trillion. And yes, you heard that right. The Kremlin says Google refused to pay fines for blocking pro-Russian channels on YouTube. This week, Russian state media reported that Google has to restore those channels or face mounting charges. If the fine isn't paid within 9 months, it starts to double every single day. So this unfathomable sum of money is more than the world's entire GDP. All right, Spirit Airlines is looking to furlough about 330 pilots next January as part of its efforts to cut costs and strengthen its finances. A spokesperson also said it will also downgrade 120 captains to first officers. Spirit furloughed 186 pilots last month. The low-cost carrier has been losing money despite strong travel demand, has failed to report a profit in the 5 of the last 6 quarters. This raises doubts about its ability to handle upcoming debt payments. And British regulators said financial companies in Britain must ensure they can operate in unexpected scenarios. That's to minimize impacts after the CrowdStrike incident caused global chaos in July. U.S. cybersecurity firm CrowdStrike experienced an outage that led to worldwide flight cancellations. The effects rippled through other industries as well. The Financial Conduct Authority said unregulated third-party problems were the leading cause of recent operational incidents. And companies need to beef up cybersecurity by March 2025. And Comcast says it's considering spinning off its cable networks like CNBC and MSNBC, for example, into a separate company. It's an attempt to counter declines in TV viewership. NBC and Peacock, though, would remain with Comcast. However, the company says it's also interested in seeking a partner for Peacock to help grow that business. Declining profitability in cable TV has been pushing media companies to explore options for their legacy businesses. Comcast made the announcement after strong third-quarter results for the company, with revenue at just over $32 billion, which is above estimates. And Comcast's media business saw a $1.9 billion revenue boost from the Paris Games, its highest ever from the Olympics, driven by mainly increased advertising by brands. Now, Americans' pay bumps are cooling. Compensation for workers was just shy of 4% last quarter, according to new figures from the Department of Labor released Thursday. That's about on pace for what economists were anticipating. Even though compensation growth is slowing down, it continues to outpace inflation. According to the latest Personal Consumption Expenditures Price Index figures, inflation is growing at a 2.1% annual rate. Federal Reserve officials have been closely tracking compensation data because it can foreshadow the path of inflation. Moving on to California, voters are considering a controversial vacation homes tax in the Lake Tahoe area. The town is the latest across the United States with a growing debate about the impact of vacation properties. NTD's Sean Marshall has more.
Vacation homeowners in Northern California's South Lake Tahoe could face a significant tax increase if voters approve a measure on Tuesday's ballot. This proposal positions affordable housing against private property rights.
I think for me personally, it's the fairness issue. It's sort of like looking at someone else and it appears to them that they have more than you. And so let's take from them to give to those that are less fortunate.
Measure N would charge a flat $3,000 tax on homes that are vacant 182 days within a calendar year. The tax would increase to $6,000 for every following year that the home remains empty for half the year.
I've lived in my car in Tahoe multiple times. Previously, it was because I could not afford rent.
The Lake Tahoe tax debate is just the most recent on the impact of vacation properties and continues to grow across the United States. Critics say vacant second homes have worsened the nation's housing crisis by contributing to a shortage of affordable rental properties, especially in pricey resort places like South Lake Tahoe. Supporters of the measure say they want to encourage homeowners to rent to workers or pay into a fund for housing, roads, and transportation projects.
Like, there isn't gonna be a community for you to come visit. Like, there won't be anyone in our neighborhood. The idea is not to be a burden on local homeowners. It's just to shift the trajectory of where, it seems like things are going.
Having nearly half of all homes in a community sit unoccupied for the majority of the year is unsustainable. We know this. Other communities know this too. Lots of beach and mountain towns across the country are struggling with these same issues.
The California Association of Realtors and the National Association of Realtors have contributed a combined $1 million to defeat the measure in a town with only 12,000 registered voters. Sean Marshall, NTD News.
Meanwhile, a new rule could make the task of switching banks easier. The task is normally complex and long, so people usually stay with the same bank for years. A rule put together by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau aims to change that. Transferring financial data from one bank to another would be a simpler task. It would go into effect in 2026 for large banks and 2030 for small banks. But not everyone is happy about the rule. Banking groups have already filed a lawsuit to block it. Arguments against it include making banks use third-party services to transfer consumer data instead of protocols banks already have in place, and the unknown level of security of these entities. And big changes are coming to Starbucks after disappointing earnings last quarter. New CEO Brian Niccol wants to fundamentally change the company's strategy. Here's the story.
We have to reintroduce Starbucks to the world.
CEO Brian Niccol says he wants to bring big changes to Starbucks after a very disappointing quarter. Global comparable store sales fell 7%.
I've heard from some customers that we've drifted from our core, that we've made it harder to be a customer than it should be.
Key changes. Have a smaller menu so baristas can make drinks more quickly. Improve timing for mobile orders so customers won't wait behind a crowd of people who ordered on the app. Reclaim the third place. Niccol says he wants Starbucks to be the third place people go to outside of their homes and offices. And most importantly, bring back Sharpies. Baristas will use them to write names and other personalized messages on customers' cups.
Close to 200,000 Sharpies we got to track down. Wow. Unfortunately, it's not as simple as just going to the Staples.
Niccol calls the plan back to Starbucks. He says he'll share the chain's progress regularly.
And staying on Starbucks, customers next week will no longer pay more for adding non-dairy milk to their orders. Starbucks says customers who order non-dairy milk will now pay 10% less for their drink. Non-dairy milk has become the second most common order modification at Starbucks and is right behind adding a shot of espresso. Chinese authorities are investigating the China branch of the global leading drug maker AstroZeneca. The company said yesterday its China president Liang Wang is under investigation without providing his whereabouts or further details about the case. And in response to the AstroZeneca situation, the Chinese Foreign Ministry only said the country welcomes foreign investment and businesses as long as they are in accordance with China's law. Wang, the executive under investigation, was raised in China. Last year, he said his multinational company would seek to be a patriotic company in China, and he, quote, loves the Communist Party. The company's former executive, Yin Min, is also being probed. Chinese media reports say the investigation into the company has been going on for 3 years. It's over suspicion of data collecting, fabricating genetic testing results linked to its lung cancer drug, and insurance fraud. The company is one of the biggest multinational drug makers in China. Its China shares plunged by nearly 3% after the news broke out, and it's only one of the many foreign businesses struggling with Beijing's probes. In recent years, China has cracked down on many such businesses in the name of national security and other reasons, often without giving details to the public. EU tech regulators say they will investigate Chinese online retailer Temu. The inquiry will determine if it violated EU rules on selling illegal products. This could result in hefty fines for the company. The investigation announced on Tuesday will also focus on Temu's potentially addictive design. This includes its game-like reward programs. It will also look at Temu's systems for recommending purchases to users. The EU tech enforcer will also investigate if Temu allows researchers to access its data as required. Now, two of the world's biggest brewers, Anheuser-Busch and Carlsberg, sold less than forecast in the third quarter. And this comes as consumers, particularly in China, cut their spending by drinking less or choosing cheaper beer. Here's more.
Two of the world's biggest brewers sold less than forecast in the third quarter. AB InBev and Carlsberg found consumers cut spending by drinking less or choosing cheaper beer. AB InBev said Thursday profits and revenues fell short of analyst expectations. The brewer, which makes Budweiser and Stella Artois, talked up a $2 billion share buyback and a guidance raise. But that failed to charm investors and shares fell more than 5% lower. Its volumes and revenues slipped by double digits in China. While other large territories, the US, Mexico and Europe also saw volume declines. AB InBev blamed lower consumer demand and said sales in bars and restaurants in China were particularly slow. Beer makers had predicted a rebound in margins and volumes this year, but sluggish economies and high inflation and interest rates have held customers back. Adverse weather and competition from cheaper local rivals has added to the impact. The world's third biggest brewer, Carlsberg, saw volumes fall 1.3% during the quarter. It also cited factors including a very weak environment in China.
Tax increases in Britain are likely to hit workers in their pockets with lower pay raises. This despite past promises from the government to protect working people. NTD's international correspondent Malcolm Hudson has more from London.
Britain's Chancellor Rachel Reeves has admitted her planned tax increases will mean lower pay raises for workers as well as potential job losses. The Labour Party had previously promised not to raise taxes on working people during their election campaign. And while they haven't directly increased taxes for employees, they have raised employee-related taxes which are paid by businesses, something economic experts have said and branded definitely a tax on working people. Here's Reeves.
It will mean that businesses will have to absorb some of this through profits, and it is likely to mean that wage increases might be slightly less than they otherwise would have been. But overall, the Office of Budget Responsibility forecast that household incomes will increase during this Parliament.
She said she wants to fund public services with heavy spending. From April 2025, businesses will pay an increased national insurance contribution, a tax to fund the UK's National Health Service. It's a percentage of an employee's wage, but paid by the employer. It will increase by 1.2 percentage points to 15%. And the threshold when contributions start will be lowered from $12,000 to around $6,500. Furthermore, the minimum wage is set to be increased. The combined changes are expected to raise $32 billion per year by the end of the decade. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer defended the tax increases.
It's important to bear in mind what do we get for that. And what we get for that is investment in our NHS, bringing those waiting lists down. That is hugely important to millions of people. We get investment in our schools and the teachers that are definitely needed. We get investment in house building, the homes that people desperately need as an affordable place to live.
The Chancellor said she wants growth to be felt across the country, but it might not pan out how she plans. Kate Nichols, Chief Executive of trade body UK Hospitality, said the tsunami of employment costs coming in April will ultimately do more to hamper growth than incentivize it, adding that the higher taxes and increased minimum wage will make it harder for enterprises to support employment and invest in their business. And economic think tank The Resolution Foundation said the increase in employers' national insurance contributions is definitely a tax on working people. Their research director, James Smith, said, even if it doesn't show up in pay packets from day one, it will eventually feed through to lower wages. And despite a historic $52 billion in overall tax increases, the Institute for Fiscal Studies warned Reeves may have to raise taxes further in the coming years. Malcolm Hudson, NTD News, London.
Google Maps is now adding AI-powered Gemini technology to the app. The navigation app is being set up to become an entertainment guide. Google Maps says the updated app can better process open-ended search and show more tailored options of activities and attractions. And Gemini can better understand context like the time of day or season. Consumers can also ask Gemini questions about a specific place, and the software will analyze existing user reviews to answer the questions. And Rolls-Royce is honoring the 60th anniversary of the James Bond movie Goldfinger with one-of-a-kind car. The new Phantom Goldfinger is inspired by the 1937 Rolls-Royce Phantom III Sedanka de Ville that played a pivotal role in the Sean Connery film. The luxury British car company says the project took 3 years to complete. The Bond-worthy car is full of bespoke gadgets. Many of them are obviously in gold, like the gold golf club fitted to the lid of the trunk. The vehicle already has an owner, but their identity remains a mystery. Rolls-Royce wouldn't comment on exactly how much the car cost to make. And quickly, before I go here, onto markets, U.S. stock indexes closed lower today as chip stocks tumbled and investors waited a host of corporate earnings. Microsoft reported beating quarterly revenue. Shares of Alphabet, first of the Magnificent Seven mega-cap stocks, reported results, rose 2.8% after the company beat expectations for third quarter revenue and profit. Alphabet helped to offset falling chip stocks, weighed by sour forecasts from Advanced Micro Devices, which also fell. All right, and with that, everything that's happening today on Business Matters. Back to you guys, Carrie, Fiona.
Thanks for those reports, Don. I think that NTD needs a Bond Rolls-Royce company car. What do you think, Fiona?
Oh, I agree. I agree. I'd be totally open to that.
Yeah, it can promote the brand as well as ride in fashion.
Well, don't hold your breath, but we'll see you back here tomorrow and see if we can make any progress on that.
All right.
Thanks, Don.
Thanks, Don.